All right, and welcome to another episode of the AMP Podcast. Today, I have our sports performance director, Brandon Mercado, sitting with us today.
Yeah.
And Coach Brandon has been an amazing coach, working with us now for going on 3 years here at AMP. Has helped hundreds, if not thousands, of athletes get stronger, faster, more durable. And yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we want to talk about today is really, what it means to be an AMP athlete, the type of training that we do, the type of challenges that we help our clients with, the experience factor, really like what is it that we try to do to make this an environment that's inviting, that's fun, while also getting the results that we came for, that the athletes are training for. And, just some experiences and ways that things that we've learned from our clients and from the process, and the way that we do the way that we train athletes and the way that we help the modern athlete, especially the student athlete, fit it all in. And I think that's a big topic for today, especially on Long Island, when we're dealing with traffic and all the priorities of the modern lifestyle and the modern, high school athletes is being pulled in so many different directions. But Coach Brandon, welcome. And thanks for sitting with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I think that, whenever someone's looking to hire a coach for anything, it usually comes from a place of some frustration, whether it's the athlete themselves or the parent, that's really looking for the best approach, the most efficient approach to, ultimately most people come to us, they're looking for speed, they're looking for agility, they're looking for strength, obviously athleticism and all of the above. But I think that we'll get to a little bit about, what they wind up finding about the process that's way more important than those categories. Yeah. But what would you say you found in your evaluations and in your programming and your coaching from day to day? What are some of the biggest challenges that our young athletes are facing today, and what are some of the ways that we've kind of helped them get through it?
A lot of kids come in with, I know you spoke about this with Coach John, that not understanding their goals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing that kids start to understand, is that training goes a lot more than getting stronger, getting faster. So the biggest challenge that we really see is the lack of goal setting, and then the overtraining aspect, so that there's so much going on that they don't have a clear path of what they want to do for the long run,
Mm-hmm.
that they kind of feed in, and we kind of call it like overfilling buckets all the time.
Yep.
That we see, yeah, coach, I play on 3 different teams for one sport and then 2 for another, but both aren't my main sport. I actually play a third sport,
right,
on this season. So they're doing so much that they don't have a grasp on what they really want to achieve in the long run, which is really difficult to bring out of them, especially when you're with the parent. They're like, yeah, little Jimmy needs to get a little faster. It's like, well, does he really need to get faster, or does he need to drop the 3 teams because he's so overtrained or overworked that maybe if he just took a day off, his speed would be a little more
right.
than, what it is now. That's one of the biggest ones too, is that just the overtraining aspect, and then the lack of goal setting. Again, if there's no path, any path will get you. I know we spoke about Zimmerman. Zimmerman's
Yes.
a guy that we always bring up. Speaking about understanding the path you want to take, so that you get to the goal you really want to achieve.
Right.
Because again, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you somewhere.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's, priorities. It's really understanding priorities is the first step to setting a goal. Because we have 2 different types of goals. There's something called an outcome goal. So that's ultimately like what they come here for. They want to make the team. They want to go get a scholarship. They want to play at the next level. That's the outcome goal, right? That might be 6 months,
Some kids
6
don't
years.
even know they want to play at the next level until you really sit down with them, and it's like, wait, I do have potential,
Right.
To take it a step further. Or maybe I'm better at another sport,
Mm-hmm.
or, for some of us, retired athletes, or it's like, I want to stop my dream here, and I'm going to help other athletes reach there. So
Right.
like they find different paths, which is cool to see also.
Absolutely. And I think, it only happens when they're met with the right questions, and they're really, challenged to think about it. and when we're discussing kind of the different paths that we want to take, you have to start to really understand what you need to prioritize. And I think that, when you want this specific outcome, that's something, that's the end goal, right? But just thinking about that end goal isn't going to get you anywhere, right? So we have to, do our best to kind of take away the distractions, take away the multiple teams, the every single weekend that there is, you're playing on a field somewhere, you're traveling, you're competing, you're not necessarily practicing a lot, right? So first and foremost, you're not really learning a lot about the game. You're just competing. So when you compete, you're essentially just doing with what you have, right?
Balance. I mean,
it's really hard to learn. It's hard to learn if you're just doing it all the time. And then where we come in is, the parents, we want our kid to be faster. We want them to be stronger. But you're not prioritizing that. You're not giving them the time to, like you just said, recover from the season or from the game. They really don't even have a season a lot of the times. It's just they play all the time.
Never-ending seasons, especially certain sports that can be indoor and outdoor. They are doing something all the time. And like I said, keyword is balance. A few kids that come to mind are like Ava Lopez has been in here all year round. She's mainly a softball player, but also plays basketball.
Yep.
But she came up to me yesterday. It's my 1-year anniversary, coach. And
it's amazing.
I go, do you know that you have not missed a single day or a single week? She's been in every single week, whether it's once, whether it's 5 times, she's in every single week. We actually had to cut her off for a week because she was doing so much. Coach, I want to come in. You're going to take this week to rest. You're going to come in, and just to keep routine, you're going to hang out. You can do some recovery stuff, but we're not going to touch a weight. We need to rest because her main sport is softball, but she also has her hitting coach. She has her fielding coaches, her pitching coaches, whatever it may be. And that's what I also tell the athletes is this is what really separates you from everybody else. If every kid is sitting on the court taking extra shots, in the field, fielding balls all day, not everybody's doing extra work outside of their sport. That really separates them because, again, you can put hours on the court, but it's the stuff outside of your sport that really develops you so that you can perform what you want to do on the field, on the court. So it's, again, the balance of really understanding maybe I should set aside more time to do extracurriculars rather than let me just hone in on baseball, softball. There's so much more to that than just learning how to swing, learning how to throw, learning how to catch. There's
100%
a lot of different pieces to the puzzle.
The balance is so important because, we just talk about the body, if you're constantly doing the same motion over and over and over again, it's going to break down, right? You're going to have overuse injuries. You're not going to be able to support the athleticism that you're looking for on the field, on the court. Those are the types of things that we try our best. I mean, our number one job is to be the guide in this process, right? To kind of be the sounding board to the parents and the athletes. And sometimes we have to push back a little bit and maybe tell them some things that they don't necessarily want to hear because they don't want to be passed up, right? There's a lot of FOMO that these organizations are using. Well, if your son doesn't play on 6 of these teams at the age of 12, he's going to miss out. Well, miss out on what? Maybe miss out on some injuries, maybe miss out on, really not reaching their full potential. And sometimes you burn an athlete out so early on that it turns them off from the sport that they once loved. Because all they're doing is, getting out on the field. And we've seen so many overuse injuries, whether it's things like shin splints, obviously elbow and shoulder injuries in baseball and softball. And it's because of, I think the theme of our conversation has already become it's balance, right? We need to find that happy medium that is sustainable, right? And if all you're doing is going out there and throwing a baseball or softball, playing the sport, and again, those overuse injuries just keep adding up. And just about every sport you can think of now has something going on 12 months out of the year. It used to be seasons, right? You used to have your, if you played football, basketball, and baseball, you could play them all during their season. Now, even football on Long Island is being played year round. So, those are some of the challenges. I would say that's, you hit it right on the head. That's the number one challenge that the athlete deals with, and that sometimes they don't even understand that is a challenge, that is actually holding them back from getting stronger, from, becoming more physically developed. If that is your number one priority, and when we start to look at college athletes and college sports, Dr. Josh Heenan, who's a strength and conditioning coach, and he works a lot with baseball players. He's come up with the 90-mile-an-hour formula that the number one thing is body weight, right? So your height and your weight. And if you don't correlate with what an athlete in college is on height and weight, if you're 6 foot tall, you should probably be around 180 to 200 pounds as a male athlete. We have so many 6 foot tall athletes that are 135 pounds and they walk in the door.
It is.
And, that's the number one thing. You need to gain weight. You need to put on muscle. Yeah. And if all you're doing is getting out there and burning all the calories and playing the sport, and you're never actually challenging yourself in the weight room and making sure you're getting your meals in, your body will never develop.
Eating.
Yeah.
Eating is the biggest one that
Absolutely.
A lot of kids don't understand. Like you said, it's the weight and the training, right, kind of go hand in hand, is that I can lift all the weights I want. I always tell the kids, I equate your body to engine of a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we go over in-body scans, and I like to just touch on BMR a little bit, right? Basal metabolic rate, what it means a little bit, equate it to an engine of a car. The bigger our engine, right, the higher quality our engine, so it's going to take a lot more gas and a lot more high-quality gas, right? Right now, we're a normal Honda Civic engine. We want to be a Lamborghini engine, but that comes with burning a lot more gas a lot quicker, and you need to put that premium gas in. So you got to make sure that you're fueling accordingly. We can't just play, again, for 5 different teams, then come train. Our engine is constantly burning gas. We got to refuel so that we don't have to downsize our engine, right? So it's kind of like learning to eat like an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I tell these kids, you're not normal kids. It sounds bad. You're not normal kids. You're athletes.
Right.
You don't just go to school, come home, play video games all day. You're practicing. You're training, right? You're looking ahead for the future, and you have to build for the future. You can't just, show up and expect the results to come if we have not balanced, right, in both aspects of our training and our lifestyle outside of training. So it's
100%.
Tough to work on.
I think, there's also the concept of making a deposit or withdrawal, right?
Yep.
Same as the bank. If you put more money in the bank than you take out,
parents.
exactly.
Good analogy.
You
for
put
parents.
more money in the bank than you take out, over time, you're going to end up with more money.
Yep.
If you're constantly making withdrawals, and a withdrawal for me is a game, especially for like a pitcher. They're throwing, that's a withdrawal from their arm, from their body, and whatever strength they have gained. And now if we don't put another deposit in by going to the gym, by eating the right foods, by recovering, by sleeping enough, by taking a day off here and there, then all we're doing is making withdrawals. Over time, you over withdraw, you're not gonna have anybody left, and therefore, in this case, you're probably gonna get hurt, and you're probably going to be sitting out or burning out, which is something that we hate to see as coaches, as washed up athletes like myself. I had a lot of injuries, and there were a lot of things that I was doing wrong, both in the gym, thinking that I was, accomplishing a lot. I was training every day, but I was doing the wrong things, and I was not eating correctly. I was eating too much and too much of the wrong stuff. I wasn't getting the right amount of sleep. All of those things just add up to leading to being an injured athlete. So you did mention the InBody, and I know that we use a lot of different types of technologies. What are some of the things that we've been able to utilize? Obviously, the cell phone is something that is kind of like one of those inevitable things that's in our hands, but it has also opened doors for us, when it comes to tracking, when it comes to whether it's tracking our workouts or whether it's, logging things like our in-body scans or our performance evaluations, some of the new technology that we're using now in our combines. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit about, the ways that we're bringing those new technologies to our athletes in a way that obviously helps them understand where they're at and understand how to, get to that next step?
Yes. So we use a lot of different apps when it comes to tracking athletes and how they perform. So there's that Train Heroic app that they use. So I explain it to parents this is just where their workout is. This is how many reps and sets they see. This is how we progress them over time. This allows me to make changes on the fly if necessary. I can always put up extra workouts, mobility, things like that. We incorporate every days, right? So these are stability, mobility exercises that are supposed to be done every day, right, that are essentially going to increase us or increase our performance over time by that 1%, right? You hear the terms 1% better every day. Doing 5 minutes of mobility work or power work every day is going to how you progress over time. And then there's apps like My Coach where we log all their information. So every first session, we're taking those day one metrics. Same thing I tell the parents. First day is a foundational day. We're going to learn how to lift, right? We're going to learn the basics of squatting, deadlifting, pushing, pulling, whatever it may be. And then we're going to go into those day one metrics. So we're going to test those vertical jumps, the broad jumps, single leg variations of those, and see exactly just where you are baseline. My job as a coach there is I do very minimal coaching in that situation. I want to see exactly how you move. So now I understand where you need to improve, right? If your jumping technique and your landing mechanics are off, all right, I know we have some area of improvement.
Right.
So then when we retest again in 2 months, right? So when we would hold our combines every 2 months, my job is to make sure you're prepped for that combine. So when you step on that jump mat again, I look at that and I go, that is exactly what I want to see. Whether it's increased by 5 inches or it's, you know, a 10-inch vertical jump improvement. I know that it's exactly what it should look like. So then we can build from there, right? And that's like the positive side of technology, right? Where we can share that information with parents and athletes. But then the negative side actually we get with is that kids come in and they're like, Coach, I saw this on Instagram. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Can we do this?
Oh, yeah.
Can we do that?
Distractions.
And I'm like, oh, man, here we go. Like, you saw LeBron doing his sumo squat deadlift looking, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. So they see all these professional athletes doing these fancy exercises. And I always tell them, like, foundation over fancy. Foundation over fancy.
Yes.
The boring stuff is usually the most important stuff.
Right. The boring stuff is not what gets to Instagram, but it's the thing that the consistent underlying, you know, building of muscle, getting stronger, being able to be in those positions for longer and be faster and more explosive
and
out of them.
Easily adaptable. I mean, like, we can start super basic from the floor and then bring our way to the bar. I had this conversation with an athlete and his parents yesterday. Hey, Coach, I want to squat and bench with the bar. I said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. We're not prepared. We're not ready.
Right.
We have benchmarks we need to hit. And even if we hit those benchmarks, I have to approve of how it looks, right? And you have to approve of how it feels, right? If it doesn't feel good and it doesn't look good, we're probably not ready.
You need to earn it.
Exactly. Everything here is earned, not given. And that's typical in sports, right? You got to earn your spot most of the time. We got to try out for a team. Same situations apply in the gym. But then if we go back to those apps, can be fast forward a year from now. And hey, TJ, you remember when we started on a goblet squat and now we're back squatting 315, right? And you had a 25-pound dumbbell in your hands. Now I can use those same apps, right, to show them their progress over time. And a lot of parents lose that when the day-to-day goes on. It's so crazy. Say, hold on, let's take a minute, right? So we like to meet with our athletes every couple months. Let's take a minute. Let's go to your file. Let's look at how we've improved over time. Maybe we're at a plateau. What can we do to improve? Maybe we are, you know, exponentially growing. How do we keep that going?
Right.
Or maybe we're going backwards. What do we need to fix, right? Let's nip this in the bud now so we don't go down the stairs, right? We got to make sure we're constantly climbing up the stairs. I call it, it's like, guys, we're not going to jump up the stairs. If we jump up the stairs, the likelihood we miss a step, we fall back down.
Right.
We get hurt. We start all over from square one. We have to take it step by step. Sometimes you can run up the steps, but most of the time we got to make sure that each foot is firmly planted so that if we do slip, I can catch myself. Keep going up nice and slow. So those apps and technology helps a lot. But when it comes to like programming and stuff for the kids, there's always those, I want to do the fancy stuff that LeBron and Ronaldo are doing, and all these like big names that as soon as they post, their Instagrams are going viral. So those are the things that get distractions in the way. And it's like, guys, focus on, like I said, the Train Heroic app. This is the workout you got. Focus on that because you could be the next LeBron, whatever it may be. You just need the work ethic for it. So you show up, you follow the workout, right? It's my job to make sure that you do it safely, efficiently, and you have fun doing it.
Exactly. And what we do as coaches, you know, there is that scientific side and the approach of if it's not measurable, if it's just something that looks cool, how do we measure the effectiveness? There's no way to really measure that. So but we can measure that the fact that you've lifted more than you did, that you're more efficient right? You can measure the increase in vertical jump. You can measure the increase in muscle mass on an in-body scale. But yeah, when it comes to what you're comparing yourself to, you should not be comparing yourself to an elite athlete, and because a lot of the times, many times, what got them, that's not necessarily what got them there. It's essentially just what they're doing because, they might not be working with the best professionals in the field, but at the end of the day, they have the genetics, they have size, and they've got the experience, and most of us are not blessed with the genetics and blessed with the natural abilities that they would have, so that we can just compare ourselves to them. We only can compare ourselves to where we've started, and that's really where we come in reminding them of where they were on day 1 and day 30 and day 90 and day 180. The consistent evaluation, I think, is what kind of separates AMP from a lot of places where you might get an evaluation on the day 1, or you might get evaluated eventually at some point or another, but there's really no tie-in to, hey, this is where you were, and we want to track. Our goal as coaches is to evaluate athletes at least 3 or 4 times a year, so that then we can see a trend. We can see, are we going in the right direction, the wrong direction, and the only way to know that we're going in the right direction is if we're consistently training, right? And that, again, there's the goal setting, the constant conversation around, what they need to focus on, right? Because you can't just focus on, I want my vertical to be up. I want to be able to dunk a basketball, right? Like, I'm touching the net, I want to be able to dunk a basketball. Okay, great. We're not just going to go out on the court and try and dunk a basketball every day. What are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on being consistent with our training, being consistent with our rest and recovery, being consistent with our nutrition. And so, we've done a lot of work in the last year, I would say, with you and Coach Nick, really, guiding the process with the parents and the athletes. What are some of the questions and some of the things that you guys, when you sit down, with the athletes on day 30, day 60, day 90, where you're reevaluating, you're kind of looking at their program, you're looking at their attendance. What are some of the things that you're looking at and that, you're kind of like guiding to get them back on track, or just kind of reward and say, hey, listen, this is why it works. Your muscle's up, your strength is up, your vertical is up. What are some of the things that we've done most recently to kind of improve that?
I think having Coach Nick, like you said, it has been a huge help. It's been his idea to meet with the athletes on a more consistent basis and really use metrics to guide our, I guess, retention. And I know Nick is all about retention, and that's his role specifically. Yep. But that's really where he wants to show that this training is working. So when we do sit with them on day 1, let's say we set that goal. We like to do maybe a 1 month, a 6 month, and a 1 year, right? Keep it at a surface level, per se, and make them somewhat easily attainable. I like to say, let's set a goal that you're going to have to work for. It's not like you wake up tomorrow and I'm going to go to school. You're going to go to school. Right? Yeah. I need a goal that I want to get a 95 on my test, right? That's a goal that, I'm going to have to study for this Spanish test because I'm not so good at it. Let me study. My goal is a 95, right? So setting goals like that may take some time, right? And then when we get to that 30-day or 90-day conversation with the parent, hey, we bring up those goals. Did we meet those goals? Yes or no, right? That's just kind of a check of a box. Why didn't we reach them? Then that's when we kind of dig deeper into our metrics, right, in our training. So it's say, hey, I know you're supposed to be coming in 3 times a week, but you came in once, for the last month and a half. You started off hot, and now we kind of fizzled out. Now, that's also our job as a coach, right, to reach out to them. And that's a conversation to be had, too, where we know life is going to get tough. And like I said, that consistency is super important. We tell the kids all the time, you just have to show up, right? Showing up is the toughest part. You getting out of the house is the toughest part. I tell the kids all the time, right, at the end of speed, we huddle up. Guys, I know some of your parents dragged your butts here today. You didn't want to get out of bed. It's a Saturday morning, but this is what separates you from everyone else. So that's also a point we hit on that meeting, right? We have that 90-day meeting. It's like, hey, you did great for 90 days. That doesn't mean we stop, right? You have to keep the ball rolling, and we use simple and metrics to use. We use some athletes that have gone away in the in season, right? And it's like, hey, if you look at this guy's scan, he actually went backwards when he came back, right? And then I use scans from athletes that did train in season. We had this girl, Liana. She actually came up to us. She said, you turned me from a NARP, a non-athletic regular person, into an athlete. And that was the most amazing thing to hear, because she was a cross-country runner. She's always been a good cross-country runner. But for her to feel like she wasn't athletic, when I speak to some of her teammates that she's brought in, they're like, yeah, Liana's always been a really good runner. But now this season, she just became all state, right? And that we went from all county. We're like, awesome, let's have a shot at states, all state, right? And we didn't see that coming in the sense of, she didn't see it coming, right? She thought she was a non-athletic regular person, right? That just looked like to run. So we use success stories like that, where she scanned, and her first month scan, so we scanned first 30 days just to make sure we're on track. She scanned her first scan, not great, right? We gained a little bit of fat, muscle didn't go anywhere. Hey, let's really hone in. Your season's coming up. Just at the end of the season, we scan, down in body fat, up a pound in muscle. Where did this happen? Where did this come from? Right? It's just a little flip of the switch in the brain that a lot of the athletes need. Is like, we call it like lighting a fire under somebody, or flipping a switch, whatever it may be. It's like, you got to like kick them in the butt a little bit. Hey, you're putting in all this work, and at least on paper, it's not showing. You may feel the difference, right? But for us to actually see the difference and for it to transfer to our sport, like, you have to put in that time, and put in the effort, right? The consistency of just showing up every day. So we use success stories like that too, where it's like, hey, you could be the next person. So then when I sit down with another athlete, I'm going to use you as an example of why you should train in season, because it's so important. Injury prevention and things like that. So that 90-day meeting is really to set up the long run, right? Because we always explain that life is never going to go straight up. It's always going to go in this fluctuating waves. But our goal as a coach and as an athlete is to make sure those waves are as small as possible,
right?
So that we can continue on the uphill, rather than make those ups and downs super drastic, making it more difficult really to hit that goal that we're setting, if that makes sense. So
100%. I mean, I think our job as the coaches is to really remind them of the process and remind them of, what their goals were and how to stay on track for them, because, they don't realize this. They're only, 14, 15, 16-year-old athletes. They have a very finite window of time for development, right? And if it's physical development, that time requires consistency. It requires challenging yourself appropriately, right? Not just going and working out and, doing a half-ass workout at your high school where, nobody's really paying attention.
Out every day.
You're just doing the same exercises. You're trying to show off in front of your friends,
Yep.
Or you're just sitting in the corner and not really doing and just checking the box. We find that a lot especially with teams that we work with. They're essentially checking the box. Like, okay, yeah, we strength train, we speed train. How often? Once a week. Well, what is that going to do for you? So, what are some of the things, some of the attributes and some of the things you've recognized, about some of the athletes that we've worked with that do lead to more success? Like, what are some of the characteristics that you're seeing from the boys and girls that we work with that, the athletes that stick with it year round versus not? Like, what are some of the ways that you kind of catch on and say, this person's really, they're going to get to the next level because of their attitude?
It's the mindset, 100% the mindset, where they're always willing to learn and are unafraid to fail. When kids come in and they're super timid, it's my job as a coach to really break them out their shell, be able to converse with us and the other athletes, and making sure that they're constantly pushing themselves. And it's also my job, right, as a coach to, hey, that kind of looks easy, right? It should be difficult. I walk around the gym floor all day. Hey, is that tough? Is that tough? Is that tough? Right? Because sometimes I can tell that looks way too easy. We got to make it more difficult. Let's slow it down. Let's add more weight. Let's change the variation, whatever it is. But also at the same time, I have to be able to converse with them that, hey, is that easy? You know, then they have to understand why they have to bump it up, right?
Yep.
We want to fail sometimes, right? So that we know where we're at. If we're not failing, we're not learning, right? If I'm always on the edge of failure and kind of afraid of it, then I'm never going to experience that true feeling of success, right?
Well, that's where we have that on the back of our shirts. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change
100%.
you. I think, you know, adding the 5 pounds a week on the bar or the exercise or the extra rep here or there, those are the little things that require, you know, sometimes people are a little timid and a little afraid to push themselves. They think they're going to get hurt. But when they're doing it in a controlled environment, when they're doing it with good form, you know, I'd rather see technical breakdown of the exercise versus like complete breakdown where they're crushing themselves. Obviously, that's our job as coaches to make sure that those types of things don't happen. But yeah, it's okay to push yourself to the brink of like, I'm trying to get 8 reps and I only got 6. Okay, good. Yeah. Now next week, let's get 8.
6 turns to 7, 7 turns to 8.
That shows that you've gotten stronger, right? From week to week. And those are the little things that add up, that become big things over time. Yeah. And again, the way that your body works, it's just, you know, if you could just work out for a month and be good for the year, I think everybody would do that. But your body requires consistent challenging and appropriate challenging, right? We don't want to crush you. We don't want to, you know, have you lift weight that you can't do right with bad form. You hurt your back, hurt your neck, your shoulder, whatever it might be. And on the other end of that spectrum, I think this happens a lot too, where you don't challenge yourself enough, and now you're really not, your effort's not there, your intensity is not there, so the adaptation never happens because you actually haven't pushed through any type of adversity. And I think, you know, that's a life lesson in itself too.
100%.
You know, life happens on the other side of adversity. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't happen in your comfort zone. And you know, I think a lot of this, what we're talking about is, you know, outside of the athletic development, you know, your job as a coach, and I think you do an amazing job, you know, bringing the energy every day, and you know, the not just like, you know, bouncing off the walls with energy. It's like it's with intent, right? So you always bring this up, and I think you do just a great job of focusing on the experience for a client, right? And
100%.
Because if they don't like the people that they're working out with, or they don't enjoy it, they're probably not going to do it very often. If they're just getting yelled at every day when they walk in the door, or they're getting, you know, nobody's paying attention to them. You know, we see that a lot in gyms where it's like, it's either like drill sergeant or like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. Yep. We have that kind of like happy medium where this does become like that family-like environment. But, you know, I know that that's something that you really care about. And you know, we understand that if our clients are not happy, they're not going to continue to show up. And, you know, we talk about the consistency, especially in season and whatnot. They're not going to do what they need to do to get here, right? They're not going to make those sacrifices to make sure that they are being consistent because maybe they don't like us, right? But tell us a little bit about like what you focus on as a coach to create that experience and create, you know, that unique place for the athlete to feel comfortable and feel at home.
Yeah, well, when it comes to like the client experience, like I said, it's unique to everybody. So as a coach, not one size fits all in per se. So I was telling one of our assistant coaches, it's like you're trying to deliver the same cake to everybody, but you have to put different icing on it, right? It's you need to sell this cake. How are you going to sell it? Right. Some people like different icing on their cake. You got to figure out how you're going to give it to them.
Just vanilla.
Exactly. So it's like figuring out how you deliver it to them, but that's the most important part. If we look at like the adult side, a lot of them may have had bad gym experiences or some really good ones, and now we're trying to match that, or have never been in the gym before. But then you also trickle it down. You know, imagine never being in the gym, you know, in 50s, 60s, right? So this is where it starts with the athletes, where whether they're playing a sport now or not, we're trying to set them up for life, right, in terms of mindset and overall health. The same thing, it's a completely unique experience what they come in, and understanding like how athletes respond to certain feedback. The biggest thing I always bring up too is like I've had really good coaches that I still speak about to this day. I was wrestling, my high school wrestling coach. I talk about how he helped my mindset so much, and I try and instill that into the athletes, right? But as a wrestler, right, it's usually like that all or nothing, go home, right? Like grind it out 24/7. Not all athletes live like that, right? And or are able to do that physically. But I have to be able to give them those small key points every time they come in, so that it adds up over time, right? The same way you would train a swimmer is not the same way you would train a football player, right? Maybe you want to be a little more aggressive with that football player, right? And that maybe they do feed off of a little bit of that yelling, right? Like, that push. And some maybe are more focused on the technical aspect, right? Like a swimmer, listen, I need you to breathe this way, push this way, so that we get exactly what we're looking for. So it's like completely unique experience. It's like that good coach versus bad coach. And I say it's a fine line between being friendly and the athlete's friend. Right? I tell them, like, we can joke around all you want, but when it comes time for me to coach, right, and for you to perform, it is go time. Right? We have to be able to, focus up, right, lock in. Once we're done, all right, cool. Let's have fun. Let's joke around. Whatever you want to discuss. You have athletes that come out to us that just like to tell me the drama that's going on at school, right? Because they don't have anybody else to talk to.
Right.
They come in, and as we're foam rolling, I'll grab a foam roller, sit down with them if I have time. Like, coach, you won't believe what happened today. And I just go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me. And then some athletes, you can tell something's wrong. Hey, TJ, tell me what's wrong. And that's how they do it. Some athletes will be wide open, tell you like a book. Some athletes, you got to turn some pages, get a little deeper into why they're coming in today. Not every session is, I'm here to get better. Maybe the coach, I got to, burn off some steam. It was a rough day today, or last game, we didn't play well. Like, now their last game kind of lit a fire under them. So every kid that comes in, it's such a different experience, even down to the youth level. Some kids are all over the place, and some kids, you're like, you know what, maybe you can roll with the older kids.
Yep.
So same ages, different experience, right? We have kids that are 12 in our youth program, they're foundational youth, right, where they're just learning basic plyometrics and basic body weight or lightweight exercises with fun games thrown in the middle, right? And then we have 12-year-olds that are deadlifting the 80-pound kettlebell and squatting the 70-pound, dumbbell.
Yeah,
and you're
development
like,
genetics and development are very individual.
Which is also crazy where, like I said, you have 12-year-olds that are outperforming some of the 13, 14-year-old boys, and you're like, how did this happen? It's the same thing. Comes to experience, and everybody's going to have a different experience when they come in here, whether it is a learning experience, whether, like I said, it's to blow off steam, right? It was a rough week, a rough game, or it's just like, I got to, like you said, check the box, but meaningfully, right? You don't just show up and go through the motions.
Right.
I tell the kids there's two things that I need from them every time they come in. One is max effort. You give me whatever you got for the day, right? You give me max effort, give me intent in what you do. Second is you always just say hi and bye. You got to say hello. You got to say bye. That's all I need from you.
100%.
But the number one is just give me all the effort you got for that day, because I will do the rest, right? If I got to stoke the fire a little bit, put a little more wood in there to light the fire under you a little more, that's my job, right? Or maybe you already got the fire roaring. My job is to keep it going, right? Let's use this momentum. We got to start the momentum, whatever it is. Like I said, the experience is so different for everybody. And like just being the energy in the room in a purposeful way. We're not trying to make this like a show, right? Some other gyms that are more focused on the group training are about just the energy in the room, but the energy has to be directed towards something. So every client's win is also the energy in the room, right? There's people that are doing their first pull-ups after sessions. We have adults do pull-ups. Everybody's going around clapping. This adult could do 20 pull-ups, or could do one pull-up, could do no pull-ups. They can hang from the bar and wiggle their feet, and everybody's clapping, right? Great attempt, great attempt.
Yeah.
Athletes, when we're competing in speed and agility, right, we're screaming for our teams. We like to play maybe 1 or 2 games at the end, just because if I ask them for max effort sprints, I get 90%. When you throw in a game, right, now
100%.
they're competing against somebody, I get 110%. And now, where did this come from, guys? I've been asking this for the entire session. Now you want to give me 110%.
Yeah, the competition within a controlled environment, that's the best way to transition it to their sport, for sure. But no, you hit on a lot of amazing things. I think that the biggest, overarching idea there is that we're not just training athletes, we're developing human beings, right? And
100%.
we need to meet them where they're at. And, there are a lot of cookie cutter programs out there, a lot of, whether it might be teams or large group training where you just everybody does the same thing. We are very individualized with our approach, whether it's the type of exercises that we're doing or the intensity at which we do them. We understand that most athletes need a lot of the same things, and mostly the basics like we talked about. But if we don't understand who's in front of us and we're just writing the program randomly, it's really difficult for them to be able to meet us where they're at. So I think that's really important. I think the next step of this process, we talk about, support at home, support, whether, husband and wife, brother, sister, teammate, the parent to the athlete, that relationship we've found is the most important relationship to linking that to the success of an athlete.
100%.
Right? Which should make sense.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times the parents don't necessarily understand when and where to start and where to step in. So what are some of the things that that you wish more of the parents understood about training? We talked about the prioritization in the beginning, but what are some of the things you wish the parents understood more so that their athletes would be more successful?
When it comes to athlete parents, like I said in the very beginning, is like the buckets. They see their athletes' buckets as their own. If we think about it like that, where yes, they have, I guess, influence on those athletes' buckets and how they're filled, right? Their social, their training bucket, whatever it may be, and they see that as their own. So they either feed into that overtraining, and I wish that they understood, right? Like you said, it's like, yes, we can play multiple sports every season, but when we start to double, triple up on our teams, right, now you're stressed that you have to bring your kid that you signed up for 3 different teams, and now, he doesn't want to go to practice because he's tired. Well, maybe that's also a sign to take a step back. Maybe we have to fill up other buckets so that this one isn't overflowing, so that you can have time for yourself, that your kid is less tired, and now he's performing better in his sport. So that's the biggest one, is like learning how to help your kid manage their buckets. Because again, it's not yours, right? Once they grow up, they have to learn how to manage their own, right? So
100%.
making sure, like as a parent, to guide them in the best way possible, and support them through their training. So we always have that conversation of in-season training with every parent. It's like, it's so important. Injury prevention, like, yeah. We're not going to have time. Sorry, we're done. It's like, well, if we took a second to, one, look over schedule, there's most likely some time in there. Yeah. Second is that, like we said, maybe we got to cut away some of the fat of their training. And we're not asking for much in terms of an athlete, right? Because when the season comes around, that is the most important part. That's why we train, right? To perform well when the season comes around. But we also want to be able to perform at the same capacity or more or better when that meaningful time comes, right? We go back to Liana. Right? She had normal scan, okay, in the very beginning, all of a sudden, all state, right, when it's meaningful.
Yes.
So, like, supporting your kid through that. Hey, maybe this training is working. She was in 2-3 days a week in season, and she's coming in straight from practice. She came in the other day straight from a competition, still in her cross-country uniform. She's like, yeah, I'm here to train. And we're like, me and Nick were thrown back because we haven't had an athlete do that in a long time. Yeah. Right? Just coming at 7 o'clock to rolling in last session of the day. I'm here to train.
Yeah.
I'm here to train. What do you mean you're here to train? If I was you, I'd be home. Yeah. Right? But that's also what separates me from her too. I'm no longer an athlete, but I probably would have done the same thing. Yeah. Right? Like, you know what? This is what got me better. I got to show up. So as a parent, if your kid is really into their sport and bettering themselves, not even as an athlete, right, as a person, and you see that this is something that's flipped that switch inside of them, like, don't take it away, right? Like, feed into it.
100%.
And whether it's here or not, sometimes, of course, you got to take a break, and sometimes it's not doable. But how can you as a parent then continue that, right? Hey, you remember that conversation you had with coach, right? We spoke about eating more protein. We spoke about getting more sleep. So the messages that we relay to the athlete are also for the parents to keep in their back pocket.
They need to
remind,
right?
As I guess, ammunition per se, where it's like, hey, we had these conversations. So the amount of parents that come up to me as well, hey, I can't get TJ to eat more protein, right? Please speak to him.
Mhm.
And I speak to them. It's like, I don't know what you told him, but he's eating more protein.
Yeah.
Right?
And then they
it's
just have to,
how it
hey,
works.
Coach Brandon said, and that's
Exactly.
we've talked about that in that it's so difficult for the parent themselves to be the ones that are constantly nagging. When they hear it from another point of view, from an expert, they're going to take it, a little bit, more to heart. And I think that, the biggest thing that you're talking about is the consistency side of things is going to allow the athletes to peak when it matters most, right? When we talk about peaking, for like something like an Olympic sport or something that you're doing once, there's a period of time where you're going to be training for it and you perform one time and you want to be your best, right? With most sports though, you're playing on a regular basis. So especially, in cross country, if there's a lot of races that are adding up, and then at the end of the year is when, a lot of the states are, and a lot of the more important competitions, if you're the one that's been consistently training the entire time versus the others that stopped in season, whether it's baseball, soccer, lacrosse, whatever sport you might play, you're going to be in peak shape when everyone else's performance is starting to fall off, right? Because we have that period of time where if you're not training your conditioning, it falls off after about a month. If you don't, if you're not, training strength, about 2 or 3 weeks, falls off. Speed, 7 days.
Yeah.
It only takes 7 days for you to lose your peak speed if you're not training it. So that's why the once a week option and the once a week plan in season is the minimum effective dose, but it is still very effective.
Yeah.
But if you drop off and it goes to 10 or 15 or 25 days off, now we're starting to see that diminishing effect where you're starting to actually lose strength, lose speed, and lose your posture. Leads to other things like injuries. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things, especially athletes that haven't been through the process with us. They might think that when they came in, oh yeah, I'm just going to train, prepare for the season. And then I go into my season and I've already done the work for 3 months. Now I'm going to go make those withdrawals, right? I deposited for 3 months. Now I'm going to withdraw for 3 months. And the problem is it doesn't last 3 months. It only lasts about sometimes a month.
And a half.
Yeah.
Max.
Where you feel about the same. Around week 4, 5, and 6 is where they really start to fall off. And our job as coaches is to do our best to remind them and to make them understand. But again, I think it's not just the athlete themselves. A lot of the times they're the ones just being dragged around and they don't have, they're not driving. They don't have their license yet. A lot of these high school athletes that we work with. So the parents are the ones that are sacrificing in their own right to get them around. But I think it is that constant reminder that the year-round nature, the monthly, weekly, daily nature of physical development is it requires consistency, and that's the number one ingredient. And I think that's, if we can remind parents of one thing and one thing only, it's that the priorities of strength training do not change just because you're in season. You have to do it, and if you don't use it, you lose it. It's literally in so many aspects in life. If you're somebody that's, in your 40s and 50s that stopped working out, you're not going to be able to move in your 60s and 70s. So, it's the same thing, and it's very quick. The way the body adapts, it adapts to what you challenge it with. And if you're not challenging it,
if the kids are young,
yes,
we see within 30 days, they get exponential results.
They're like sponges.
Yeah. So, but then in the same rate, right? Within 30 days, you can lose it all if we're not staying consistent. And that's where I find a lot of parents don't understand the importance of strength training. Right? They think that it's going to, like you said, 3 months is all they need, right? Let's put the money in the bank, and then all of a sudden 3 months from now, you're broke.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you have to keep it up. They don't understand the importance of it, maybe because they never trained like this before. They weren't at the level their kids are at, or maybe that they physically think they can't, make it happen for their kid. And that's when our job, right? I had this conversation again with another parent the other day, is like, this is actually why we do the training, right? She had a question on why the programs are the same. Like, why is he doing the same 3 workouts when he comes in? Well, right, we need the consistency.
Yep.
Right? We have to be able to execute a certain exercise really well before we can progress. Right? I want you to kind of almost like max out that exercise per se, right? Until it becomes really difficult. Then I can upgrade you, right? We can change the variation. We can change where the load is, whatever it is. And now I'm educating the parent, and it has them understand the real behind the scenes of why we do what we do and why their workouts are either changing every 6 weeks or why they're doing certain banded exercises in season. Maybe why is my son, squatting, squat to pins, right? Well, because we want this adaptation and we want to, have them be able to be springier, be faster, whatever it is. So we have to educate the parent because oftentimes that they put their kids' coaches over us, and understandably that, that's the person they're going to see more often than us.
Right.
But also, right, the baseball coach's world of expertise is in baseball, right? And we're the strength coaches that we want to work hand in hand with them. We don't want to work against you guys.
Right.
Right. We're here to help your baseball coach so that when you step on the field, you don't go to him, coach, my elbow hurts, my shoulder hurts, right? He should be like, you're good to go because I know you're training, right? I always equate it to building bulletproof armor. I want to build all this armor up in the off season, and in season, right, that armor starts to get chipped away at
100%.
Over either physically through contact or non-contact injuries. And then those start to build up over time. And if we're not repairing the armor, all of a sudden we're left with none. And then we get that killing blow all of a sudden. Now we have a super serious injury that we can't come back from.
Right.
So we have to, like I said, educate the parents about why we train. And that's, again, bringing back to the 90-day meetings or in the first day when they come in for that consultation. Hey, this isn't just for 90 days. This is for life, whether you're here or not. Your routine should be to at least work out once a week whenever you can. Move some weight, right? Move it with intent so that they know that, hey, you know what? Maybe he should stick around. If we really want to take this somewhere, this is something that we need to do continuously. And as a former college athlete, I tell the kids that at some point you got no choice, right? It's part of your routine. Yeah. If you're off season, you're lifting 3 days a week. If you're in season, you're lifting twice. And
that's the biggest change. They have no choice.
You have no choice, right? If you want a starting spot on the team, you got to show up to lifts, right? It's not just practice. So like college athletes will be in, they're still lifting heavy, right? Of course, their program changes in season. Same thing would happen here. You're going to lift heavy. So if you tell me that you want to play college ball, well, be prepared to work out in season, right? You're going to tell your coach, sorry, coach, I can't work out. We're in season. He's going to, great, you can sit on the bench. I'm going to put somebody in that is willing to put in the work. And that's a really tough conversation to have with a parent and athlete, but sometimes that it needs to be said, because when they do get it into that position and they are in college ball and they're like, man, I'm going to skip this workout. This might be a conversation that comes back up in their head, or it might just be ingrained in them, right? That discipline, that consistency that we gave to them, that they're like, I can't skip this lift, right? I want my starting spot, or I have X, Y, and Z goal that I need to hit. And this is mandatory, right? For me, not because coach says it is, because I say it is, right? It's for myself.
And they've done the work.
Yeah.
They've built the resilience. They've built that confidence. They've built their bodies. So it's nothing new. It's like the concept of stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that we do a great job, in when we send our athletes to college, the ones that have committed to the process, they're ahead of the game. They're really far ahead of the game. And they're the ones that, maybe they weren't even the best in their high school, but the work ethic that we ingrained
100%.
over the first couple of years, they take that with them, and they are one of the top performers at the first lift, the evaluation, whatever it might be, or the exercises that are new to everyone else in the room. They've been doing them since middle school or since freshman year. So I think that those are the things that, again, we keep going back to, the 3 C's that we talk about with our athletes. It's being committed to a goal. It's being coachable when you're here, coachable to be a part of the process, and being open to making harder decisions or making some sacrifices you weren't necessarily thinking you were going to have to. And then also being consistent with the day-to-day workouts, being consistent with your words and your actions, the priorities that you have to choose. Sometimes that has to do with the things that they're doing on the weekends, the people they're hanging out with, the extracurricular activities that are not feeding into them becoming the best version of themselves. They're actually hurting. And, friendships can be lost in that process. And sometimes they're necessary. Because I've seen that happen a lot, where you get derailed by the wrong crew of people.
I've experienced it also. Sometimes you got to take a step back and really like analyze what is most important to you. And of course, it's tough at 14, 15 years old to maybe cut off some of your friends, right? That's not what we're saying to do, right? Like to cut off friends, but sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture. Maybe it's not friends that are holding you back. Maybe it's video games, right? Maybe it's sleeping too much. Maybe it's right, like eating all the wrong things, right? What can I cut out of my life that is going to really help me excel? And as you become an athlete more, you kind of get that understanding of like, I know what I need to do, right? And it becomes routine. That's when it goes back to discipline, is when you're doing the things you don't want to do, it builds that routine in you where it's, I'm just going to show up, right? Because I know I have to. It's my scheduled time to work out. I'm going to show up, right? There's no like prioritizing something else over it, right? You kind of have your priorities set. And I tell the kids all the time, it's like the kids that show up on the holiday breaks are the ones that usually end up doing the best in their seasons, right? Or end up getting the best results in the long run. And I always point that out to them. Hey, guys, look around the room, right? You may see some faces that you see all the time, or it might be a really small class. When we're used to having a class of 20 kids in speed and agility, it might be a class of 10. Like, guys, notice how small this room is today? It's because everybody else decided to go hang out with their friends instead of take an hour, 45 minutes to just work on some plyometric work. It's 1 hour of your day, right? And it's, again, we're not telling you to cut off your friends. Hey, I have to go to the gym for an hour, guys. I'll be right back, right? That's all you need to do, right? Or bring them along with you, right? Even if they're not into sports, or if they are into sports, like, hey, maybe you should try this out with me, dude. So we can you don't have to wait for me, or maybe I can get the ball rolling for you, right? And let's do it together, right? So now it's an hour of your day and trying to prioritize what's the most important part of your day. And it's not an all day adventure. It's
100%.
1 hour, you get it in and out, see you later. So
absolutely. And yeah, let's talk about, the maybe the hardest step is getting started. So what are some of the ways that that we help our athletes get started? Like, what is the first step? What are the ways that, if you're someone out there, whether you're a parent or an athlete listening to this, this is resonating with you, what is the way that we can, help them, take that first step?
Well, first step is to understand what you want to do, right? So say you want to play at the next level. All you have to do is step through this door and speak to somebody. Everybody in here is looking out for you and looking out how to help you best. Like I said, we're not cookie cutter where one size fits all. We're going to sit down. We're going to go over those goals. We're going to help you goal set. The amount of times that we speak to kids and I ask them for a 1 month goal. What do you want to achieve in 1 month? Or I explain it. What does TJ look like now from 1 year from now, right? What does 1 year older TJ look like? How has he improved, right? So when you ask those questions, you get a long pause. So we're going to sit down. We're going to go over all those things. We're going to ask the difficult questions, right? What's holding you back from achieving those goals? Why do you want to achieve those goals? Some people just want to play on varsity, right? Some people want to get to a Division I college. Some people want money for college because it'll help their family out. So understanding that. I mean, when it comes to like getting started, I know you mentioned that like some people may either feel like behind or not like good enough. Like I don't need to put in the extra work because I'm not going to take this far.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter. You don't know, right? Like turning a normal, non-athletic, regular person into an athlete, right? You don't know what's on the other side of the coin unless you flip it. Right. So you got to just take the first step, take the initiative, right? If you say, I'm going to start tomorrow, the chances you start tomorrow are probably the next day and then the next day, right? Start now, right? The best opportunity to do something is in the exact present moment.
100%.
Right?
Commit.
Just take action.
Yeah.
Take action, right? I call it game day setting. You're not going to wait for your team or you're not going to wait for the offense to, come running down the field, right? You're going to go make that tackle, right? You're going to go make that catch, make that layup, right? You're not going to wait on anybody else. I can't make the tackle, the layup for you. You got to take the first step. You just come in, and that's where us as coaches really we're going to guide you the entire way. It's the 2 rules that I have. You just show up, give me 110%, whatever you got for that day, and you say hi and bye, right? Those are the only 2 jobs as an athlete you need to do as soon as you walk through these doors, because everything else is on us. I will track everything for you. I will help you track things. I will help you understand, why we're doing things, how we're progressing, what we need to do to progress. And that's just as a team as well, whether it's, Coach Nick by my side and then helping with those difficult conversations, or it's Coach Hannah and Coach Jess, which is speaking to young female athletes on the importance of eating and lifting heavy, or it's Coach John sitting down and telling his story about how he, changed his life around by eating correctly and things like that. So as a team, right, there's so many different aspects that they can take advantage of. Tell them, use us, right? We're here for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys weren't here, I wouldn't be a coach,
right?
Exactly. That's exactly why I'm here. I'm here to help you.
We're resources.
Right? I'm not here to stand around and yell at you, right? Mm-hmm. Even though that may happen sometimes. That's a fun part of the job, but that I'm here as your resource. I'm your coach, right? And whatever aspect you need me to help you out with, right? That's why we're here. It's not just a place to come in and lift weights. It's a place to ask questions, right? Whether it's about your sport, about your exercises, about life, right? Like I said, kids come in telling you their drama, day to day. It's like now they're asking me life advice. Right now it gives me an opportunity to reflect on myself, right? How did I handle this situation maybe when I was their age, or how can they handle it better? Because I have a completely outside perspective on their day to day, right? Coach, I'm slow. I can't hit a lefty layup. Well, when we look back at your metrics, your left leg was kind of lacking in power. So like kind of, again, educating. And so there's so many different avenues to just like, all you got to do is take the first step. It can be difficult and intimidating to really get the ball rolling. But once you really take action, same thing I tell the kids is like, if you have an opportunity, you have to take it. And if your opportunity is now, take it. Don't wait for it to pass by and I should have taken it.
Right. I think that's what we all do as coaches.
You got to claim your spot on the team. You got to work for your spot on the team. And this is how it's done, right? Like everybody's doing extra for their sport. Nobody's doing extra outside of their sport.
100%. Very well said. Very well said, Coach. I think, our goal here is to educate parents, educate athletes, and I think you did an amazing job, kind of like giving a coach's perspective on this whole process and the challenges that we face in today's world and all the distractions and how to prioritize. So if this is something that resonated with you, if this is, a topic that you're passionate about, any questions you may have, do us a favor, click the link in our bio, click the information below, reach out to us and get the process started for yourself, even if it's just to get on the phone with a coach. We're here for you. We would love to hear from you. And so do us a favor, like, subscribe, and share this video, whether you're listening on the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or Instagram. Do us a favor and let us know what you gained from this, so we can keep doing this and helping people just like yourselves. And thank you, Coach, for sitting with us today. And I hope we inspired some athletes and parents alike, to get the process started and get on the first step to becoming the best version of themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.